What is good, everyone? Deanna here with Label Free Podcast. Autumn is in the air, the pumpkins are in the patch, and our friends at Manscaped are here to make sure your man doesn't carve his pants pumpkins when he's grooming, if you know what I mean. Make sure he's keeping things fresh this fall with the leaders in male grooming and their brand new 4th edition performance package. Ladies, do we really want to cuddle up with a dude who isn't trimmed? I know I don't. My man's keeping it tight. Get him to take the leap into fall with Manscaped. Help him join the 2 million men worldwide using Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code LABELFREE20. Again, go to manscaped.com and use the code LABELFREE20 for 20% off and free shipping. What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. As you know, I love my coaches. They are just the backbone of this podcast. They are making the world a better place. And they all are so incredibly unique in their style and their approach and how they go about helping individuals. My next guest is a speaking coach, a storytelling expert. She hosts a story slam where she's at, all the way in beautiful Boulder, Colorado. Please welcome Johanna Walker to the show. Johanna, thank you for joining us today. Can you please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background?
You're welcome. Thank you, Deanna. It's so great to be here. I am a speaking coach. As you said, I help emerging speakers develop the skill and confidence to take the stage and step into thought leadership so they can amplify their voice through the world and have a greater impact. And
sorry.
Yeah. No,
I already have questions for you. Sorry. Keep going.
I think one of the parts of the story I like to tell is that as a young person, I was incredibly quiet. I was so terrified. As a young adult, even, I was terrified of speaking and sometimes would go for days without speaking. It was through writing, actually, that I reconnected to my voice and I found myself at a poetry reading. Well, I should say I created this poster or self-portrait when I was in college. I drew a self-portrait. It filled the whole page. My face was down in this corner, and there was a talk bubble that filled the space, filled the page. In the middle of the talk bubble were tiny letters, "I have nothing to say."
Interesting.
Yeah, this was the story I believed to be true about myself. This is how I moved through the world, just believing I had nothing to say that mattered. So I didn't say anything. I would go for days without speaking.
Wow.
And it was through writing. I had stacks and stacks of journals. I would keep journals. And that's what kind of kept me connected to my humanity.
Sure.
And I found myself at a poetry reading. I lived in Kent, Ohio. It was the 20th anniversary of the Kent State shootings. They did a 48-hour poetry celebration where poets from all over the world sent poems. Many of them traveled to Kent to read their own poems or sent poems for local poets to read. And I raised my hand to say, I can read somebody else's poem. I'll go to the stage and read somebody else's poem. That was cool. I could do that. When I got to the stage, it was my turn. I was like, you haven't given me my poem yet. I don't know what I'm reading. And they said, oh, we thought you were reading your own poem. And I was like, no, I don't do that. You don't understand. I don't do that. And I did. I read a poem. And at that point, my writing was a lot about my story of silence. So I read this poem and I could feel the connection. I could feel people hearing me.
Yeah.
I could feel the power of my words. And it was like, oh. And people came up to me afterwards and said, thank you for telling your story. That's my story too. And I was like, wait, what? You're kidding? That's your story too? What are you talking about? I thought I was the only one in the world who felt this way. So in telling my story, it opened the door for all this connection. And I started working with adolescent girls and women in jail and senior adults. And then much later, corporate CEOs and bank executives and entrepreneurs and business owners. And across the board, people we've all tucked a little part of our voice away for safekeeping because there wasn't a safe landing pad. And when we show up with more authenticity and vulnerability, that's where our people connect with us. That's when they say, I want to hear more. That's when they say, I want to hire you. That's when they say, I want to follow you, whatever it is, I want to know more. And it's really in that crack of humanity and vulnerability that across the board, women in jail to bank executives, we've all lost parts of our voices.
Yeah, I would agree. And so like you, I was very shy when I was younger. I mean, I don't know if I think back now, I don't know if I was necessarily shy or I was just scared to talk, right? And so as I've gotten older, I've kind of gotten over that a little bit, but I still occasionally find myself hesitating to speak up when I want to. So I think, like I shared with you, and I've shared with my audience, I lost my grandparents recently, and I took it kind of hard. Surprisingly, I didn't think that I was going to at all. I was like, oh, they've lived a long life, blessed life, blah blah blah. And at the wake, they asked if anybody wants to get up and talk and tell any stories. And I had a lot of things I wanted to say, but I didn't get up and say them. This is just happened. And I'm a
Uh-huh.
pretty vocal person. I put
Uh-huh.
everything out there. And so for me, I felt like cement. I felt like I was cemented to the chair. And I don't know if it was my emotions or what it was, but I couldn't get up and tell just very basic things
Yeah.
about my grandparents. And I felt sick to my stomach afterwards that I didn't get up and honor them like that.
Yeah.
And I have no problem talking in front of people, so I don't know what that was about.
Well, what do you think it was about? What was different about that?
Oh, you know what? I don't really know. I've been racking my brain, and I actually asked my sister, I'm like, "Will you come up with me?" And maybe I think I needed a support system
Mhm.
because I didn't want to break down in front of everybody and just start crying
Yeah.
and talking about stories. And woo, woo. You know what I mean? Like I just wanted
Yeah.
someone to be there next to me so I could speak and tell my memories about
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much that we carry in our voices. So much of who we are as humans we carry in our voices. So much of our trauma we hold in our voices, and our joy, all is in our voices. So when we really show up with, letting your full voice be heard, it can connect to a lot of vulnerability, and sometimes that's terrifying.
Yes. Yeah, and I think maybe in that moment I would have been extremely vulnerable
Yeah.
to a lot of people, and I don't know that just so actually before we started recording, I had asked you how long you've been a coach for, and you said 8 years,
Mhm.
and why did you start?
I had for a long time been a theater artist. Like I said, I sort of reconnected to my voice through poetry, and then that opened the door to theater and dance and performance. So I really found my way on stage as an artist, and found that was so healing for me, and for the people I performed, for my audiences, because I was meeting the fear and
Yeah.
telling the story. And then, so I had been teaching a solo performance class for some time, and one of my students was invited to give a TEDx talk. And at that point, I didn't really know very much about the world of speaking at all. Like, I'd kind of heard of TEDx. This was before TEDx became just a household name. It was like, oh, yeah, that's something. And she was giving a TEDx talk, and she asked me to help her. I said, sure, I'll see what I can do. And I really knew nothing about I knew about performing,
Yeah.
I knew about how to be on stage. So I helped her, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I could make money doing that. I'm gonna hang my shingle. I'm gonna hang my shingles because I had been a starving artist for years.
Yeah.
And so I hired a coach myself. He had similar theater training, so he showed me how he was kind of shared his method of how to translate our similar theater training to the coaching world. He gave me like a crash course in business owning, and then I had a business, and I started translating all these years of time on stage as a theater artist to speaking.
Do you think that I mean, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyways, just for the sake of the audience.
Yeah.
Do you think that women are more suppressed with their voice than men?
I think generally speaking, yes. I certainly work with men who
Oh, you
struggle
do?
with confidence in speaking. Absolutely. I think it hits different people in different ways. But I think, yes, the way sexism lands on women, I think for the most part, women struggle a lot more with, we didn't get, many of us. I mean, of course, there are always exceptions, and people,
Sure.
people get, I always say, if you weren't one of the quiet ones, I'm willing to bet you got in trouble for talking too much. And so it's like we all got hits in some way about our voices, around our voices, where we weren't given just like 100% go. Yes, speak.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to hear your thinking. I want to hear your experience. What do you know? What do you love? What do you care about? Let's hear it. We got trained to fit into boxes.
Yeah.
And so the voice is the place where we get shut down. It's like, to speak my truth through my voice is against all those messages that came at us so hard as young people. And I do think it hits women harder for the
Yeah.
most part.
Why do you think it's important for someone that might be struggling for them to find their voice?
There's just so much tied up in our voices. I mean, I think, for one, I work with a lot of business owners, coaches, consultants who want to grow their business. They want to reach more clients. They want to have an impact in the world, and to speak is a powerful way to grow your audience. To speak is a powerful way to show your expertise, to show your humanity, and to let the people who you can serve know that you're out there. It's
Yeah.
a really powerful way. And when you can show up with authenticity and vulnerability and expertise and sharp clarity, that's when people say, "Oh, I want to follow her. I want to work with her," right?
Yeah.
So for a lot of the people I work with, connecting with your voice in the way that I help people is really key to the success of their business. But then on a deeper level, just as human beings, as I said, there's so much locked up in our voices. And when we start to tell the hard
Yeah.
stories and step on stage and get out of our comfort zone and take risks, it just cracks open so much.
Yeah.
I witness over and over when people start to, do that scary thing and get on stage and claim their authority, so much else opens up in their lives because they've opened the stuck places in their voice.
I would agree.
People, I see people leave jobs and, you know, talk to their partner in a way they haven't spoken before, and have difficult conversations with people they love, and just take bigger risks in their life. I see
Yeah.
that all the time.
Hey
But
guys, Deanna here with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. Support for Label Free Podcast is brought to you by Impression Derma, who has experienced increased exposure to HEV light over the last year and a half. I know I have. If you don't know what HEV light is, let me educate you. HEV light is emitted from your phone, tablet, and computer that penetrates deep into the skin, which can lead to wrinkles and increased harm, leaving permanent damage. As an avid skincare lover myself, I have found a solution that protects you from those harmful lights. Let me introduce you to Impression Derma Let's Face It. This product will increase collagen, promote hydration, improve elasticity, halt premature aging, and shield against those free radicals, all by using these key ingredients: algae, buriti oil, bamboo extract, raspberry seed oil, bloom light, plus many others that are sustainably sourced and produced as well as ethically traded. Please head to impressionderma.com and use code labelfree20 for 20% off. Again, please head to impressionderma.com and use code labelfree20 for 20% off. That's got to be so amazing. I mean, so for me, when I started this podcast, and I'm just going to be relatable here for a minute, I was scared. Like, I was like very nervous. Like, oh my God, what do I think I am? I'm going to start this podcast, and like, what am I? I remember the night I recorded my intro to it, and it took me like 10 times. I drank a bottle of wine, and I've told the story before, but it's relevant because of what you do and what you offer. And I didn't realize how fearful, how scary that was going to be, because you're just being so vulnerable. But as I've continued to just relate to my guests and talk to them and open up about myself and just sharing their stories and just putting myself out there, my life has opened up in many different ways, and it has blossomed.
oh,
And
I know
there are some
Yeah.
episodes where I've shared some things in my past. I never shared that I was a human trafficking victim until this podcast.
Wow.
And like that episode, after, I was so scared to release it. I'm like, oh my God, like my secret, I have no more skeletons in the closet.
Yeah.
None, there's no more. I like the feeling, the weight that was lifted
Yeah.
was just amazing.
And it's such a huge gift you're giving. Like, it's, for yourself, it's transformative, and it's a weight, and it opens up so much power in your life. And when you tell the story, it's a gift for other people to say, "Oh my God, that she told that story. That's my story too."
Yeah.
That's what happened for me. When I spoke about my my story of silence. I gave a talk. This was when I had first started. I was maybe a couple years into my business. So I think this was like 6 years ago, 6 or 7. I was invited to give a talk about how I walk the edge. And I knew immediately I never had a child. And for me, this was a journey. Like I thought I would have a child and I didn't have a child. And it was a whole process of making sense of my life. And at the time that I was invited, it was still just a very vital story in my life. And so I gave a talk about this. And it was terrifying the morning, because it's been a very, very personal journey.
Yeah.
Very personal journey. So that morning of the talk, I was just like, pull the covers over my bed and saying to myself, why do you do this to yourself, Johanna? You don't have to give this talk. Cancel. Just cancel. Just call them up and say you got sick.
Yeah.
Call them up and say your car broke down. You don't have to do it. Why do you put yourself through this? And so I showed up at the talk. I did all the exercises I share with my clients. And what got me on stage to give that talk, the reason I walked out on stage, because I was even backstage, I was ready to run.
Yeah.
I walked out on stage thinking there's somebody in the audience who needs to hear this talk today.
Yeah.
And I gave the talk for her. And indeed, there were many people in the audience who needed to hear that talk. And the talk is now online, and it's a lot of people still reach out to me and say, thank you. Thank you for giving that talk. It's helped me have conversations that I couldn't have. It's helped me make sense of my own grief. It has served so many people. And if my fear had won and I had canceled, those people wouldn't have benefited from my story.
No. Yes. So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Once you step out and into that vulnerability and put that out there, to me, it's very miraculous. So speaking of that, how do you go about, what's your process like when, you work with your clients? I mean, I'm sure they're all very different, whatever their end goal is, but talk to us a little bit about that in case someone's listening, you're interested in reaching out to Johanna, and I'm going to have her plug all her links too. But why don't we walk through that so that they know how you operate and what it would be like to work with you?
Yeah, well, I do an online program called Craft Your Talk.
Okay.
The parenthetical, it's actually Craft Your Uniquely You, Client Attracting, Change the World Talk.
That's a long.
It's long. That's why that's in parentheses. So
Yeah.
What is it, Craft Your Talk? I help you craft your talk. And it's an online group coaching program where I take you through the process of getting clear about your big idea. What's the idea you want to be known for in the world? Who are you speaking to? Who's going to benefit most from your talk? How are you going to get them from where they are when they walk in to where you want them to be when they walk out? What are the stories that serve your idea? What's the action you want them to take? So we do a deep dive into all these questions, and then you craft your talk and you get to deliver it.
I love it.
So, this is stuff that a lot of people, it's like I'm passionate about my work, and I know that I can help a lot of people, and I have a really important story to tell, and I have no idea how to organize my ideas. I have no idea what part of the story to tell. It's a big story. What part of the story to tell? I have no idea how this talk could fit into my business and really serve my business. So I take you through a step-by-step process of developing that talk. And what's really awesome is you get to deliver it. I host an event, a public event, where you get to deliver the talk. And when there is a date on the calendar and you're going to give your talk, you get the dang talk written.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've always thought about, I think that would be a lot of fun, but nerve-wracking, but really good to step out onto a stage and tell tell my story. I've always thought about that. I don't know. We might have a talk afterwards. Maybe I might sign up for that class.
Awesome.
Before I have you plug all your links and all that good stuff.
And it's not, wait, I got to say one more thing.
Okay.
Because it's not, I think this is the mistake that so many people make. It's like, I have a story to tell. I have to tell my story. I have to tell my story. It's all about me, and my story, and my story.
Well, there has to be a purpose. There has to be a purpose.
That's why we get really clear about who's in the audience and how is your story going to serve on their journey.
Yeah.
So it's making your story 100% relevant, because it's not really about you. It's about that person in your audience. I think that's where so many people fall short, is like, I'm so passionate. I have a story. I'm so love me, and then the audience is like, well, what about me?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. You have besides the TEDx talker speaker that you coached, your first client.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Do you have any other or one other story, like a success story, someone that you coached through that helped break through that barrier and got them to speak?
Um, I've had people just recently. Somebody did my Craft Your Talk course that I offered in the spring, and I hear this all the time because they get to deliver the talk.
Yeah.
And so this is somebody who she ended up in my program kind of in spite of herself. She had kind of been thinking, yeah, maybe one day I'll speak. It's a
Yeah.
down the road thing. Something about I had done a free class. She was really inspired. She got some live coaching at the free
Sure.
class. I always do a little live coaching at the free class. And she was just like, oh my God, I have to do it now. I'm not waiting. And she came in like, standing on the precipice of just like, what am I doing here? I am not ready for this.
Yeah.
And to see her deliver the talk at the end and be like, I can't even believe I just did that. And I mean, I get a whole range of people in the class. Some people are
Sure.
that it's fun for me when somebody is that scared and
Yeah.
then they do it. A lot of people just, they're not as scared. They're not so scared, but they don't know how to organize their ideas, or they just want
Sure.
to take their speaking to another level. But I love getting to find the edge for somebody
Yeah.
and help them over it.
Oh, I like that. And so, where can people find you, Joanna? Is it Johanna?
Johanna. It's
Johanna.
Johanna. Yeah.
Okay.
Johanna.
You should have corrected me
Rhymes with
before. I should be
banana.
like, Deanna, come on.
That's all right. Sorry.
Where can people reach out to you, find you, follow you, all that good stuff?
Yeah. Well, I just developed a quiz to help you kind of determine if speaking is on your radar and it's on your, this is the year for speaking, or speaking is going to benefit you. I have a quiz that just kind of helps assess where your skills are, where the gaps are, what are the steps you can take to fill in those gaps so you can take that next step. So that quiz is craftyourtalkquiz.com.
Cool.
You can find that there. And then I share some resources for, depending on where your gaps are. I share some resources to fill in those gaps. I'm super active on both LinkedIn and Instagram.
Okay.
So you can definitely find me there. Instagram is Johanna Walker Speaking, and LinkedIn is Get Real Public Speaking. I know they shouldn't be different, but
That's
are.
all right.
And I like to build real relationships with people who follow me. So send an email, a message via LinkedIn or Instagram. Tell me where you heard me. Tell me something about your life as a speaker. I love building real relationships with people who are out there. Like, why not?
Yeah, totally agree. Like how we've built our relationship over the course of this podcast. I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I will make sure all those links are in the show notes, you guys. So do not hesitate. Reach out to Johanna. Did I say that right?
You got it.
And if you're interested in speaking or just wanting to fine tune your craft a little bit, and she's got some free resources there for you to figure that out as well. And I like to ask all my guests one question before we end the show. Do you have any last words of wisdom or advice for the audience?
I think it's just, if you hear the call to speak, answer it.
Ooh, okay. Well,
answer it, and not next year or 5 years down the road, but today. Somebody needs to hear your message, your story, your expertise, your heart today. Somebody needs it today. Somebody needed it yesterday.
Yeah.
But since you hadn't spoken yet, they didn't get it.
That's right.
And not everybody has to get on stage and speak. Some people, if it's not your thing, don't worry about it. Go do something else, But if you hear the call and you know that it's in your bones to be a speaker, answer the call, because somebody needs you.
Woo, that was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you had one thing that you've got that you're releasing soon. It's a lead magnet. Did you want to talk about
the quiz? That's the quiz.
That's the quiz?
Craft Your Talk quiz.
Okay. All right, cool.
And I'm gonna be offering, for those people who hear this soon, I often offer free classes.
Okay.
I'm going to be offering a series in September. And so it's a great way to just, get some value, get some baby steps for your speaking. So you can find those on my website, johannawalker.com. If you're listening to this podcast after September, johannawalker.com, I often have free stuff that I share.
Well, they're out there forever. So whenever they listen to it,
Yeah.
they can go and check it out. And if you have this past September, they can see what you have off after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't hesitate, you guys. She's there waiting to help you and help you find your voice, because it's very important. Again, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story, what you do, how you help, and those last words of wisdom, because I think that, yes, if you have the need, and if you have the call, if it's calling you and you have the fear, you definitely need to show up and face your fear. Like I believe that big time. But you'll have to keep us posted on any new projects you have going on, and we'll have you back to get an update from you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
Great talking to you.
Yes. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Kuempel of Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, follow, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.